Then they looked at each other, said, "I do," and then lived happily ever after. The end. Whoa, wait a minute. That's not how it was done. What about the gifts for the family? Dowry, breaking of plates. You even missed a shark tooth gift. Don't get me started. The bride needs to always... You know what? You need to just watch Woman to Woman. Learn how marriage was done the old school way. This Friday at 3 p.m. We are women. We are brave, strong, capable, unique. We are Woman to Woman.
Good afternoon, South Africa, and good afternoon to our audience from all the other continents. We are still celebrating Women's Month. And look what we got. Beautiful cups with our logo. And today we are in this informal conversation in the kitchen. We're very proud to be in the kitchen setting because the kitchen gives us that homey feeling and family-oriented discussions. And we are going to talk about today something that called our attention. We allowed you to vote if you still believe in old school marriage. And guess what? There are many who don't. There are many who think that the institution of marriage is long gone. And we are going to explore why. Is it really old-fashioned? Is it really gone? But before, just to break a little bit the ice on this topic, we have prepared a video for you where we explore different traditions and different approaches to a wedding ceremony. Just watch.
Hello everyone, my name is Sifogazi. A very special woman in my life is my aunt. She taught me that in life I should never give up and I should stand for what I believe in and love people around me. Thank you for watching. Bye.
When we think about a wedding, that special day, what usually comes to mind is Hollywood. But here are 5 wedding customs from across the world that are completely far from that and will blow your mind. Number 1, Fiji. Men in Fiji have to find an unusual gift before they can ask for a woman's hand in marriage. Before asking, they must present to their future father-in-law with a whale's tooth. Number 2, Mauritania. Brides actually work towards getting healthier and chubbier, so they go to fat farms to gain weight before the special day. Number 3, China. The bride has to cry every day for an hour for a month before the wedding. Other female relatives join in as well. Crying for the Tujia people in China means welcoming a good marriage or event. Number 4, India. A few Adivasi communities follow this ritual, which is that when a man and a woman get married, the woman is kept in a hidden place with her husband and not allowed to interact with people. After a year, the marriage is approved by the senior members of the village. Then there's a grand function held in the community and they celebrate the wedding. Number 5, the Hmong people, China. There are 3 ways in which the marriage can begin. 1, the groom's family approaches the bride's family and asks for her hand in marriage. 2, the bride runs away to the groom's house. 3, the groom's people kidnap the bride. This is generally a symbolic kidnapping, as the woman is allowed to refuse. Only after one of these 3 happens can the negotiations between the families begin. So take time to dig a little deeper, and you will be amazed by what you learn.
Thank God we got married in different ages, because many of those traditions we didn't follow, and many of those we did, like the bouquet, like the kiss, not knowing the real meaning of it. So just now we are going to explore some curiosities about the subject. The first one, the word marriage, came about an English name on the 13th century.
Nowadays, we have witnessed that in most families, life has changed. The dynamics of marriage has changed. It is not like as it used to be in the olden days. And today, a busy lifestyle is one of the things that, has created, how can I say, something that it makes it even more difficult for couples to stay together, unlike in the olden days. We have social media today, we have the internet, we have TV, we have kids. Lifestyle in general is very busy as a whole. So the average couple today usually spend around 4 minutes a day. And how could a marriage, that should have quality, that should last, and be an example to the children that are growing up in that family, last when a couple can only spend 4 minutes a day? I mean, that's so less. And we see that most of the time is being devoured by even the hobby. Sometimes a husband has hobbies, the wife has hobbies, they are preparing the children's homeworks, and everyone in the family is busy nowadays because of the dynamics of this lifestyle, unlike in the olden days.
And over 75% of people who married with an affair they enter into a divorce.
Really?
So, yes. And why that? Because think with yourself, if that partner you are having now came from an affair, what guarantees that he will not have another affair? So you can be the next one. That's why I believe so many of those who get married with someone who came from an affair, they had an affair, they will end up living the same situation again.
And as well, we know that back in the Roman times, marriage used to be, people used to get into marriages because of political alliances. They used to get into marriages for wealth transfer as well. So if two people, like two influential families, they decided that they were going to get married or increase their wealth, then their children would have to agree to getting married. So that's where the kiss then would come in. That was a seal of a contract saying that we agree to enter into this relationship, we agree to enter into this marriage. Back then, people would get married at the age of 12. Maybe the girl would be 12 and the boy would be 14. And they didn't have much say in it. The family had to come together. They would find an appropriate family to get into contract with, to get into agreement with. So it had to be because of political alliances. And we know as well that back in those times they had kingdoms. And maybe one kingdom wanted to have an alliance with another. So then they would enter into marriage. So it was mainly because of wealth or political alliances. And that's where the kiss came in. It would be to seal the contract, to say the deal is done. So it was not necessarily about love. It was not necessarily about two people agreeing, but whoever entered into the contract of marriage understood that it was for the betterment of the family. It was for the betterment of my parents. And if, for example, the family was not well off, then they would marry within the family, because then no other family would want them. So they would have to marry within the family, given to uncles or given to cousins. And it reminds me as well of a lot of things that we have here in South Africa. In cultures where we still have kings and kingdoms, I know that sometimes kings can enter into polygamous marriages because one wife would be the wife that he chose for himself, and another one would have to come from another royal family. And that is to strengthen alliances. We still have that in countries where there are kingdoms and where there are kings who want to strengthen whatever alliance or strengthen relationships with other countries or other kingdoms as well.
And nowadays, we live in a generation where premarital cohabitation has become the new norm. But what a lot of people don't realize with that is that only after 5 years being together, when you're first time married couples, you actually, there's a 20% chance of you getting separated or divorced. However, with cohabitation, there's actually a 49%.
More than double
The number of what would happen if you just decided to get married. Now, 10 years later, there's actually also another huge difference, because people think, no, we're still getting to know each other. I want to test this relationship out, because we have sayings that say you first have to test drive a car before buying it. But they don't realize that with doing that, 10 years later, when they finally decide to get married, or when they're married, they have actually a chance of much more sadness, and we see that it increases to 63% of separation for those that began with cohabitating. But those that got married, there's only a 33% chance of them separating. So this shows that the old school thing is actually what is beneficial and good, because with cohabitation, you get to see how the person is. There are a lot of dislikes and things, and you hear them later saying, before we got married, this piece of paper changed everything. But it's actually not the truth. It's because you went into a relationship where you committed yourself doing marital duties, but actually not having the commitment. Hence, it's so easy for all of them to just up and leave. And that's why there's the increase with those that cohabitated before marriage.
And as well, we have this thing where a married couple, they actually have double the wealth than single people. So single people have 77% less wealth or less finances compared to married couples. It's because in a
That's an interesting one.
Yes, it's because in a marriage, especially if two people are working, then it's double income for the family. So that's why they have more wealth. And another research says that people who are in marriage for, if they say it's for long term, or they know that they're going to get married or to stay married for life, then they are able to invest in houses, in property. They're able to have more investments than when a single person is, maybe they want to invest in something. And as Precious spoke about cohabitating as well, people who are cohabitating, they have less wealth than married people. It's because they know that they can walk out of the relationship at any time. And research shows that people who are cohabitating, they have different bank accounts, they have different properties, they never share anything. Even with rent, it's half, one has to give half and the other has to give half. So there is no investment, there is no future planning. Whereas in married couples, they plan for the future. So that's why they buy properties, they open businesses, they save as well for their future. Whereas single people, it's only them and they have nothing. It's a single earning family. It's only her and maybe the child. So the wealth doesn't increase much. But with married people, they have more wealth than cohabitating people, than single people as well.
The other factor is that families and couples that are more happier in their marriages, that are maintaining happiness and stability in their marriages, their relatives and friends tend to be less likely to interfere in their relationship. Above 80% of happily married couples, their relatives are not interfering, their friends are not interfering, meaning that they have set healthy boundaries within their marriages. Unlike the percentage that is far lesser, around 38% of couples that are not happy, that are constantly fighting and experiencing a lot of troubles in their marriages, those are the ones that their relatives are most likely to interfere within their marriages. Why? Because in most cases, you find that the couples that are experiencing conflicts, they tend to want to seek advice, and they tend to want to have their family members side with them. And I have experienced that firsthand from the marriage of my mother and my stepfather, because of the many hardships that they were facing. I have seen actually that it was for her to be seeking advice from her other relatives. Hence, they were interfering so much in the marriage. They were interfering so much. Everybody had their opinion. The sister had the opinion of her marriage, her mother, and everyone else, because she was likely to seek help and ask advice, and from relatives that would side with her, which is common. I have seen that so much. So most couples that are less happy in their marriage, they are friends. Many times, women, they like to go to their friends and ask advice. Oh, my husband is doing this and this and this to me. And obviously the friend will likely to side with her friend, because they do not know the other side. They are only hearing one side of the story. So this is something that I have witnessed myself as a young child, as a teenager growing up, how relatives can interfere. It's because the marriage itself is crumbling down, and hence the people are looking for help in the wrong places sometimes, sadly.
And there is a final curiosity. Married people is twice as likely to go to church in comparison to unmarried people. So they look for stability in God in their relationship. Now, after such curiosities that are striking, especially a few of them for us in South Africa, where we are oriented by family meetings and discussions about family problems, let us define what is marriage. Because our point of today is why this institution has been discredited along the years. Marriage, it is also known as wedlock or matrimony, and it's recognized as a contract. Any initiative of marriage is, despite all the beauty of the ceremony and all the preparations, down to earth, it is a contract which will impose rights and responsibilities. And those will go not only for the couple, but will eventually affect the children, and will to some extent involve the in-laws. This contract of marriage is based, recognized by organizations, religious, state, tribal groups, or even communities. In other words, what we know as in South Africa today, you go to the registrar's office or to the Home Affairs and you get married, and that's a civil marriage. In other places, in other countries, the religious authority has more influence, and that is the case of Saudi Arabia and Israel. In others, it's community-based or tribal groups. Like, for instance, we would call our family in Maasai land. Their marriages are tribal groups. It's the leader who endorses and approves. So that is the concept of marriage. And exploring further, how was marriages taking place in Bible times? That's very interesting to understand. Again, in Bible times, marriage was not by love. The concept of marrying by love came in the era of Victorian ages in England. Before, it was, as Tammy said, more as a convenience, political affairs, diplomacy, to secure the wealth of the family or to expand and make alliances. So in old days in the Bible, mostly the bride and the bridegroom would be discussed by the parents in what they would have in mind. They would keep from their own familyhood. Why? Because they knew values and religion, so to say, would be carried in the same way. So we see to which extent Abraham goes in the Bible to send his faithful servant across the country, a 800 kilometers journey by foot in the desert to go to Haran, to his family, to get someone for his son, Isaac, that would come with the same principles, would respect the same God, would have been brought up with the same values. After having that discussion and identifying who would be the suitable bridegroom or the bride to that person, they would negotiate. But something very interesting that people fail to mention, that it is from the Jewish tradition until now, even though it was an agreement between parents, when the bridegroom would come and make the proposal, there is a phrase that we say, ask the maiden. Still the lady would have the opportunity to say, I agree, I don't agree. So that concept that in old days marriage would be forced, it was not really part of the culture of the Bible and today Jewish tradition. The maiden, the single lady, would have a saying about that. Immediately after, they would offer the bridal price to the family, not to the uncles, to the father and the mother. And this bridegroom would shower the bride with gifts so that she would have good eyes and her heart open to him. This interesting point about the bridal price that we are going to talk shortly. But then the ceremony would be blessed by the father of the bride, because soon after she would go and live as part of the family of the bridegroom. So they would have very little contact with their family, not with the concept that we have today, that over the weekend you will spend maybe one weekend with your in-laws, the other weekend with your parents. Once that lady would embrace the family of the bridegroom, she would have very little contact with her family. Now, her house, her interest, her surname, her language, her culture would be of the bridegroom. And that ceremony would happen before the community, and soon after they would leave that ceremony, and her life would be in the house of the bridegroom. The bridal price that causes some confusion to today, it was basically given to the father, but not for his soil use. He would share most of that price with the bride because she needs to prepare. She needs to take her dowry. She needs to prepare her things to move to another place. And she needed to be beautiful and presentable, because otherwise it would be very bad to the family where she was coming from. Those who were wealthy families, They would even present the bride with pieces of land. So the concept that marriage in Bible days was slavery and suffering is defeated. And you can consult Proverbs 31 when you read about the wise woman who would examine a piece of land, probably the land she received from her father as a wedding gift, and she would turn that piece of land profitable. She would have her own business. She was a businesswoman by then. So the bridal price was not really with the concept that many may think of as today, and even justify what we have in African culture.
Yes, and in African culture, we have bridal price, as Mrs. Massa said, but in other countries, they also have dowry. This is something that we did not adopt in Africa, most especially in South Africa. So a lot of people confuse bridal price and dowry. Bridal price is paid by the groom's family to the bride's family, and it was given to the father. And I think maybe nowadays it is given to uncles because maybe the fathers were not present. So they would have to find the oldest male representative of the family to give. So it wasn't exactly uncles in the beginning, it was to the fathers. And this was used for the couple to start their own life. And because of course they were back in the day, they would marry very, very young. So they probably didn't have any wealth, and that would be for them to start building wealth. We have dowry in other countries. Dowry is given from the family of the bride to the groom, to the couple, for them to start life together. So we adopted the bride price, and here in South Africa, we know how much this is a controversy because nowadays people don't want to get married because of the bride price, which we call lobola or mahadi in other cultures. So what happens is the family of the bride decides how much the girl is worth. So if the girl is educated or she has a job or maybe she didn't have children out of wedlock, maybe they think that she's still a virgin, then they would put all of that into consideration and decide on the bride price. In South Africa, some cultures still use cows as a means of paying the bride price. So you could maybe check the most expensive cow would be probably around 20,000 rands. So depending on how much the child, the bride to be, is educated, and what other qualities does she have? Does she know how to cook? Does she know how to clean? Is she beautiful? Then maybe they could charge up to 20 cows. We've heard of 50 cows. So you can just imagine how much that person.
In royal families, it goes up to 150 cows.
Yes, because of the royal blood in her. And that's why a lot of people today, a lot of guys today who cannot afford the bride price, they decide to cohabitate because it is a lot of money. If you convert how much one cow is to probably 100 cows, 150 cows,
2 million.
It's a lot of money which a lot of people cannot afford. And on top of that, the guy has to provide a proper place for the wife to stay, and most probably a car as well. And
The gifts for the family.
yes, the gifts for the family. So there is a lot in play here. That is why we don't have a lot of people who believe in old school marriage and they prefer to cohabitate. And that is, well, for some cultures, it is acceptable just as long as you're not getting married. From the time you mention that I want to get married, then they put a price on the girl. How much is she worth? And if, of course, they were cohabitating and they have kids, then the bride price goes down. So many youth today, they don't want to get married because the bride price will be very expensive. Then they won't be able to provide proper life after the wedding for the bride. And we're not adding the factor of the marriage, the wedding, because it has to be extravagant. It has to be beautiful. So we have a traditional, I don't know how many weddings I don't know how many weddings they have, because it's a tradition, it's a celebration for them to give the lobola. They have to celebrate it. It has to be a big thing. After the lobola, it's going to be when the groom gives the gifts to the bride's family. That's another celebration. Another celebration is the traditional side for those who believe, like they say they have ancestors or whatever. That is another celebration. Then comes the white wedding. That is another celebration. So there are many celebrations before the actual wedding day. So that's why a lot of people say they don't believe in old school marriage anymore.
So that could be one of the factors why you might not believe, because from the moment that you think I'm going to get married, there is a price tag attached, not one. By what you said, it's a lot of things involved and expensive in line with the pandemic. What else could be diverting women out there from the concept of marrying?
I think also it's your upbringing. A lot of families we've seen in South Africa, sadly, as Tammy mentioned, that why the uncles maybe came into play was because the father figure was no longer there. So now you find that how did the father leave? Maybe sometimes it's because of separation, because of abuse in that household. Maybe the father was abused and that child grew up witnessing that abuse. And inside of them, they told themselves, if this is what marriage is, then I'm opting out of it. And we see that so many times whereby you hear kids saying, no, marriage is an institution of abuse. Women are forced to be enslaved. It's not happy. People pretend. And what I've also noticed with today's generation is that those who are married sometimes, because they don't understand the real concept of it, they're more about the pretending side. When people come to visit, we are a happy family, like we're doing good. Even the mood changes, the way the mom addresses the kids, the father, but they forget that when those people leave, like Ms. Dino said, the involvement of relatives, when those people leave, maybe because you said something to your mother, and then she comes and she wants to confront your husband to address the problem, they don't live there. When they leave you, they don't know what's going to happen. So we've seen men become abusive towards their wives because they believe you're putting our dirty laundry out there. Now we're the laughing stock, or we are now the topic in during the dinner. We are the ones that are being spoken about. So that child grows up thinking, then this is not what I want. There is no happiness. I see my mom crying. There's a lot of infidelity that we see as well happening. So that child ends up thinking, I'm not going to put myself up for this, so I'm opting out. And that's what a lot of people actually don't realize, that it doesn't necessarily mean that's what marriage is. That couple had issues. They didn't have the correct outlets on how to sort out their problems. And sadly, that person went towards being violent, be it emotionally or physically, because we see those that as well, that though the man or the woman, because nowadays women are also abusive towards their husband. So it's the words that they speak. So you'll hear a young man saying, I don't want a wife because my mother speaks badly to my dad. She degrades him, she puts him down. So women don't know their place. But that's not what the old school marriage was actually about. It was a joint partnership. And I can imagine in a household where there's infidelity, of course, you're not building generational wealth, because that money that's supposed to be staying in the house and doing other things is now funding another lifestyle of another woman, and meaning that those kids then are never even going to learn on how to properly build a home and invest. And that's why they just go for everything, because as Tammy was speaking of the lavishness of the wedding, it's not because that's what they were taught from home, but because I want to prove to people that I have money, I can make it, I can do it. That's why they actually go sometimes for those lavish weddings, to say, we are better. We don't need anybody. We don't need any help or anything like that. But after they have so many dates, and those marriages actually fall into calamity just in the beginning of their marriage.
So we could say that the first thing that is making women to disbelieve, cost involved, tradition from the parents. Second, many see marriage as abuse. because of their background, how they grew up, and they saw the relationship between mother and father, what they saw in the family, they grow up with that mentality. I'm not getting married because marriage is abuse. But you spoke about something that I'm sure she wants to complete on. She's petty. And there is a petty saying.
There is a
Share.
there is a petty saying that says, "Monna ke selepe, o lala a dingwa." It literally means that a man is like an ex, and he can be borrowed into to other people. And this saying, it's more like it's like a depression to the minds of other women, because when they enter into marriages, and I've literally heard in some of the wedding receptions that the aunties would literally stand up and give advice to the bride and say, when your husband comes late, don't ask where he
My
comes
gosh.
from. That's how I've seen it. I have seen some wedding receptions. The aunt would stand up and say, as long as he brings money to you, as long as he feeds the kids, as long as he pays the bills, do not ask a man where he comes from when he comes late. And so this is teaching this kind of concept from the traditional side. It is teaching women to put up with infidelity. It is teaching women to bear with the pain of seeing their husband having lovers and having to accept it, because from the word on go, when she got married, she was already told indirect, do not ask a man where he comes from. And the other thing that I have seen in this show, that for me it was really shocking, I have seen a couple that was planning to get married in one of the shows that says My Best Wedding or something, I don't remember so well. But the man was saying, you know what, even if I have a phone here, when I check it alone, do not ask me questions. And literally the woman was saying, oh, but we would be married by then. Says, I'm the man of the house. So from that, already that talk, they were doing a show preparing their marriage, but I could see trouble brewing already from that show, that marriage will not last, is heading for trouble, because already there most women are being taught to put up, it's normal when a man cheats, as long as he comes home to you, what's
Pays
the
the
fuss
bill?
about? He pays the bill. What are you unhappy about? Because you know that there are other women out there that you can share yourself with, these women, your husband. But at the end of the day, he comes home. If he spends one night out, what's the big deal about it? He's still your husband. You are the one who has the marriage contract. So this is one of the things that makes most young women never to want to sign the papers, because from there on, they know that they will live with this kind of pain in their marriage, knowing their husband has multiple marriage affairs and they have nothing much to say about it.
Okay, we also have the saying of lebitla la mosadi ke lenyalo, meaning that the grave of the wife is her marriage, her marriage.
And also they say about the knife. There is another one.
Yes.
What is it?
Mosadi tshwara thipa ko bohaleng.
Yes, so that's why many young girls don't want to get married, because they tell themselves, they understand as well, because
Let us explain what both of these saying, because they're similar. One, it says that your marriage will be your grave, or where you got married, you're going to die. And the other one, a woman has to hold the knife from the sharp edge.
Yes.
What is the meaning behind this two common saying?
Okay, the one with the knife, it means she has to put up with everything. Like, because when you think of holding a knife on the sharp edge, you're going to get
hurt.
You're going to get hurt. It's excruciating pain. And now imagine holding on to that sharp edge. It's damaging. So no matter how hard your marriage is,
Abuse, betrayal,
lies,
family influence,
everything, you have to put up with it. And even though you see, then it leads to the grave part, because if you're putting up with all of these things, all that pain, even we see sometimes women losing themselves, Miss Masa, whereby she's like, I can't do this, like I'm about to die. And maybe family involvement, the husband wants nothing to say. He is not going to be involved. You were the wife. You were warned when you got married. You were told. Because another thing that we have is when you get married, the day after, I think when they have the traditional wedding, you're called by the family and you're taught the ways of that family. Now, in that meeting, they go wild. they say all sorts of things because the women meet with the bride alone and she's told how to handle her business. And some advisors are really bad. And that's where these sayings come in of holding the knife. And they're sometimes proud of it. Like, no, you see me, I've gone through abuse. He has hit me. I've slept in the hospital for weeks, for days, and I'm here. But what matters is we are married. So when that woman now is so damaged, she doesn't even have power to come out. Even though there's a lot of outlets she can do, then that's where it leads to her now dying and saying at least she died in that household.
And she cannot go back to family.
No, she can't go back. We have cultures where because they don't want to give back the lobola, right? Because in African culture is that if the wife chooses to leave the marriage, then the family has to give back the bride price. But what I know in like some Zulu cultures, the most traditional ones, is that if she decides to come back, they've already put a small shack right next to the house, but a little bit far, because she's no longer part of that family anymore. So if she decides to come back, if she decides to say that I'm not going to die in this marriage, then that's where she's going to stay, because she's no longer part of the family anymore. And she chose to leave the family of the husband because of abuse, because of whatever other issues she couldn't take, then that's where she's going to leave. But she's not coming back to this house anymore.
Divorce law came to exist in 1858 in the most developed societies. However, we see that to a certain extent, it is still a taboo in many cultures. And when it comes to African culture, it's still challenging. It is difficult, especially because every marriage problem consists of family meetings to try and help the couple to solve those problems. And of course, knowing that the credibility of the family, the image of the family in homeland, and having to pay the lobola back, the family of the bride will tell, your business is with your husband. We don't interfere. And that's why there is this common saying that she will die where she got married. No matter what she goes through, she will have to put up with that. With those that we spoke about and others we are going to highlight now. And this is why many women don't want to accept the institution of marriage. Silmar is trying to speak for 3 rounds. Now it's your time.
I was thinking while they were saying about those sayings, it's all about the reference that they come from, the background. Because when I look to myself, I remember the abuse of my mom with my stepfather. My husband has a story that his stepfather would be beaten by his mother. So was the opposite way. So when we come from this background, now to be living married, if you don't have the right guidance, it's hard, because you really think it's going to happen the same. And with all the investment, if I may say that the couple need to do to the prices and everything that they need to give, the lobola, they decided to hide. Sometimes they get married in their home affairs. They live in different houses just to pretend for the family we can't afford. So let us not talk to my family.
They got married, but they still live in different houses,
yes,
like as if they were singles.
It's common, if I may say, because many times when we counsel people, that is the situation they arrive. They are having problems with their marriage. They can't go with the normal way, go to the family to have family meetings. So they decide to come to the church. And when we hear their story, they live in different houses. And at first you say, but you are married, why you live in different houses? No, because we could not pay lobola, all the procedures that they need to do. So I want to get married, but then I cannot afford. So they decide to live separated. Being married, it's supposed to live together and to start to know each other, the adaptation. We know the beginning, it's a bit complicated because you need to learn your husband, the husband is learning about the wife. So imagine now living separated. And it's so common that even in other countries, they adapt in this way.
And but the one that you're giving the example is that it's because of the bridal price. But in European countries now, it's becoming popular. It's the new way of getting married. You get married.
So I think it's because they are so afraid of what they think. And today we're going to prove them wrong, and maybe you. about what it means old school marriage, they are trying still to get married, but they are making their own rules. They are adapting. We spoke about what was happening like years ago, but now let me try to customize the situation that suits to me, and I still can be married, but I'm not going to go through that suffering. And that is what you said, and we are going to complete.
So in European countries nowadays, they get married, but now there's no commitment because you both live in your own houses. So the woman usually is the one that's going to stay with the kids if there are kids in that marriage, and the husband has his own home. So usually you'll call, like, they even go as far as different cities, not like same suburb, different houses. No, different cities, and you'll hear them saying, "No, our relationship does far much more better with us apart than with us in the same household." And with the pandemic as well, that's where we saw a lot of couples like that went into this this court, because now I'm here in this house, because remember, we didn't know how long we were going to be in it. So those that lived from two households had to move into one house. Now you found the woman saying, "I can't deal with this man," or the husband saying, "I can't deal with this woman and her kids." And that's because nowadays marriage has now been made almost like a joke, if I can say, or something light, whereby now imagine, how do you build a bond with your wife, with your children, if you at the end of the day go home? And you'll hear even kids saying, "No, but that's how marriage is." And little kids say that. I was speaking to one girl and she said, "No, when I get married, my husband's going to have his house and I'm going to have my house." And
How old?
I think she's 15. And I said, "What do you mean, your house, his house?" And she said, "No, because when we have a problem, when we are not getting along, he can go to his house and I stay in my house." Then I was sitting and I was trying to calculate with her, okay, so you're going to pay 2 bonds.
That's the thing, Atami, that is stats you read about 77% wealthier is not going to work in this situation,
I think
okay?
that's where the prenuptial agreement comes in, because they have to sign now. You need to sign if the woman is wealthy and the guy is wealthy. They need to sign, like, in case of divorce, you take what is yours, I take what is mine, and whatever we acquire together, we divide in half. And I remember that we would see this stand in the wedding expo. You know, the wedding expo, we're celebrating love. People are there to plan their wedding. How is it going to look? And we of course we are for marriage, and we would tell people about the book, How to Bulletproof Your Marriage Against Divorce. And there would always be this one stand of a lawyer.
Nothing wrong about your business, but I think it didn't suit well to be in a wedding.
Yes, because people are preparing for marriage, and you are already saying, okay, I know that you guys are preparing for marriage, but in case if it doesn't work out, here is a contract that you can sign, so that when you separate, it's not if you separate, it's like he's saying, when you separate, then your assets, what is yours, and what is mine. So that was very contradictory. And he would, they would always be working and saying, okay, no, I know. And they even came one day to our stand to say, maybe we can work together. And like, no, we
cannot work.
I was like, no, we want people to stay married, because we understand the principles of marriage. We want them to stay married. You are saying that they have to prepare them. These people are not even married yet, but you're already planting this idea in their head that they will separate, so they have to prepare.
And funny enough, now with the pandemic, I heard they have the drive-through for marriage. And they visit you in the house if you want to divorce. Yes. So you arrive, the lawyers arrive in your house. Maybe in this case, they were living separate house. Now they had to come together. They cannot pay 2 rentals. And now I cannot live with this man anymore. So call the lawyer comes to your house and he does everything. It's so awkward. Like, how can it happen? Because we believe that marriage, it's an institution by God. So the world is making it so simple that you can just...
And so vulnerable, like disposable. How can you engage in something with the mindset that eventually, in months or years, that will fail?
And what's funny is that another contributing factor to the prenups is that now women refuse to get married without a prenuptial agreement. Because what comes, it's so strange. The things that go in there are so crazy. It's never about the well-being of children when they're children. It's all self-serving. I want the beach house. I want the car. I want this. I want that. And now the worst part is now there's spousal support. So should you now separate, that person wants you to pay them alimony every month to still fund the lifestyle that you had when you were married. So a lot of people that are now accomplished in life and they're financially stable, they fear going into marriage because of that, because you'll hear them saying, I don't want at the end of the day when he leaves me that now I still have to be paying for his bills. So imagine now you have a child and then he says, no, but ever since I got close to you, we got married, you used to take me on holiday once a year. So now that we separate, when the lawyers come in, because they are ridiculous as well, because they're about making money and keeping you. Because I'm thinking if there's this agreement that you want,
But that is their business.
that's their business. The more problems they bring and the more you need to consult with them, they're getting paid. So now women are refusing to say, especially with nowadays, we have stay-at-home husbands. Now with
It's
this,
another change from the misconcept of marriage. So marriage for many, it is symbol of abuse, of subjection, of inferiority as a woman. But we still have the need, the physical need, the emotional need of interacting with people, of being couples, of having marriage and children. So what is the easy solution that they brought?
the easiest one is getting, usually they even get a man that they know doesn't have much power. He won't have much say, because we have a lot of women that believes in their rights. I'm the head, I have to be listened to. So she won't look for a guy that's going to stamp his authority in that household. She'll usually look for someone that she knows is easygoing. So this is where we find stay-at-home husbands. Now the stay-at-home husband nowadays, he's the one that cooks, he takes care of the kids, he takes the kids to school while the wife is working and all of that. Now imagine this man is a stay-at-home dad. When things don't work out, he is going to want to continue with that lifestyle that he had. So this is where now the money comes in, where afterwards he says, you have to pay me, or they stay in that relationship as unhappy as it is. As Seal was speaking, that sadly nowadays we find women now abusing men. So as much as he is abused, because of all the benefits he's getting, he's choosing to remain in that. But they forget the young ones, the future generation that is watching knows the truth, because I always say you can always pretend to the outside world, but the people that you live with in the house know the reality of that home. They know the hardships of that home. And you forget that you're paving and shaping the mind of that young child on whether in future they will want to get married or not. And you find that it's become so popular nowadays. Like, no, my dad is a stay-at-home dad, so I'm not going to marry a man because men are weak. They stay home. They don't do anything. My mom gets more things than my dad brings. So there's that competitiveness as well, that people actually don't end up seeing the use of being married.
And the worst thing that I see about it, we know we crave protection. We crave someone to provide for us. That's the old story of the little girl and the father. The father is the hero who always took care of her, who protected her. Now emancipated women, and there is nothing wrong. We're not saying that you cannot have your career, you cannot be aggressively successful in your business or whatever. But you will crave for protection, for attention. So you're going to live in this format of marriage that you provide, but you're not going to endure long, because at a certain time, that frustration will kick in when you compare yourself to other women and you see that they have an active husband, even if he makes less than her, but both are fighting for the family. So what seemed to be very convincing in the beginning, and very good because you're not threatened by abuse, by subjection, you can continue with your career. Now, frustration comes in because though you are the head of this family, you feel unfit, inappropriate, because you wanted someone who would protect you, and now you became the protector.
And I think that's just where a lot of people, they don't want this word is a word that a lot of people, they don't want to hear, and that is the word submission, because they believe that submission, when you submit under someone, then you are submitting yourself to abuse, to being used, to being told what to do. But in actual fact, submission, for women who know what submission is, and for men who know how to deal with a wife who is submissive, it is a beautiful thing. But because the world has turned this word submission into more like, it's like, no, it's a word that should never exist. If they could, they would remove it from the dictionary, because for them it's like a cuss word. You cannot use submission. I am not going to submit to another person. So this is where now we have house husbands, because if I make him feel inferior, then I won't need to submit to him. But then they, because they twisted the word wrong, it's because they don't want the man to be the head. They want to lead. And that's why at the end of the day, it doesn't work, because they were not created to be house husbands. They were created to lead, to have a mission, to protect the family, to create wealth for the family. But if a man is not living according to his purpose, and the woman, the wife, is not living according to her purpose, and we have already spoken, submission does not mean abuse. Submission does not mean to be used. If we do it in the right way, then God blesses that union. But a lot of people, they don't want to know that. So that's why they want weak men who will never tell them what to do. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to do what he tells me to do. I'm going to do what I want to do, because it's my life. And that's why the concept of marriage has been destroyed, because of this word submission.
And another factor, just to add to what Tammy's saying, is that most young women that we come across, they have unrealistic expectations about marriage. And the other factor is that, and hence why the love therapy is something very important, and as well proper preparation. Hence why premarital counseling is very, very important. In one instant, I have sat with a lady that was about to get married, a bride to be. And I remember asking her questions that made her eyes to pop out, because she literally didn't have answers that she was supposed to be having just, few weeks before getting married. She was not knowing crucial things that she needed to know about her future husband, about her fiance. So one of the things that, sadly, that most people, they rush to get into marriage and they are not well prepared. Premarital counseling is one of the important things that young couples, or even older couples, especially even the older ones, that they need to to learn to go through those, so that they can prepare for marriage. Otherwise, those unrealistic expectations, one will enter into marriage with those, and they will not materialize. And hence why they will say, no, I won't put up with this, because they were not properly prepared. They didn't have the full idea and concept of what marriage is about. And we hear today, it's a very common phenomenon that most women say, no, in my marriage, I want 50-50. We will go 50-50. There's even a song about it. Everyone, let's go 50-50. And people adapt this.
Maybe this should be the song of our break. I don't think so.
Certainly not. So this song was really, really popular. It was sung by one of the most popular artists. Everyone, let's go 50-50. So people want to adapt those kind of ideologies in their marriage. Say, no, it's 50-50. If I wash the dishes, then he has to clean the floor. If I take the children to sleep, he has to do something. So they come into marriage with this mentality. And the young women think, no, my husband will do this, because this is how modern times are teaching young women, especially these reality shows. I think they are one of the negative sides of what real marriage is about.
We have explored a few, I would say a few, of the reasons why you might not believe in marriage. Old school marriage, the marriage, I'm not going to say according God, the institution of marriage. There are so many more. Today there is uncertainty And men and women alike are very vulnerable. So how am I going to live a lifetime sleeping with the same man? I might need something different. And the men think the same. So there are other issues we couldn't cover in this program. Otherwise, we would have a 2-hour show. And even though it's Women's Month, we cannot. But I think the reason why this mistrust and disbelief in marriage comes from the fact that most of women do not understand the conception, the design of marriage according to God. So just after the break, we are going to explore that. Who knows? You don't believe in marriage. You say you believe in God, but you don't believe in marriage anymore. But you have a misconception about how God intended marriage to be. Stay with us, and we are going to clear your mind in that direction.
Hello everyone. In celebration of Women's Month, I would like to say thank you to all women out there. A very special woman in my life, who is my mom, taught me that in life I should always dream big, pursue the unimaginable, never settle for less, always be the best in all that I do, always improve, and definitely put God first in all that I do. And in this way, I will achieve all that I put my mind to.
So tired of holding to raise my hopes and fail again. Yet your voice do I hear? Just your voice do I hear? To turn this desert into pastures green. I found you by the way. With you I'll never thirst again. I owe my all to you. I owe my all to you. You've turned my desert into pastures green. Embrace me now to the altar, to sacrifice. Come and find me now. How good it was to be with you. I'll never feel again. Now I truly know a love that's born of faith, a love that is born of Praise me now to the altar, to sacrifice.
Welcome back to the second part of our show. We are not going to take that long, but we are going to help you to align your vision and your thoughts to the concept, to the design of God for marriage. So we should start by reading, of course, Genesis chapter 2, 24, we would say is the first marriage recorded in the Bible. And we read together, therefore, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. Now in Romans 13:8, it says, oh, no one anything except to love each other. For the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. In 1 Corinthians 13, it says, love is patient, love is kind. So, what is God's design purpose for marriage? He said it's not good for a man to be alone. So he gave this man a trustworthy helper. A trustworthy helper is someone who's not inferior, who is not devoid of understanding. Otherwise, she cannot help. God's concept of marriage is to have two who will become one, as it is written in the Bible, and for that, man will leave his family and he will constitute another family with his wife. So it means the worries he had before with his family, now that family became his relatives, his life, his thoughts, his provision is for his wife. On the other hand, as we saw in biblical times, she would also leave her family, and now her life would be to live for her husband. God's design of marriage is equally yoke, respect and love and care. It does not mean that marriage according to what God has designed, a woman would be inferior. Reading other passages of the Bible, do you think we would have Deborah as one of the judges if a woman would be inferior? When you think about Esther, who was raised to save a nation from injustice, from mass destruction, was she inferior? Really? When God says you are going to be a helper, are you someone devoid of understanding? Absolutely not. Two people, man and woman, together as one, for a life of respect, of dignity, helping and building one another, making decisions together for the better good of their family. Not one abusing, not the other claiming to be superior and now being the head of this family, working in partnership and commitment. When we talk about the institution of marriage, old school marriage, according to God, we're talking about commitment and love. There is no commitment and love if husband or wife cannot sacrifice for the good of the other. Not only the wife sacrificing, this man, he will sacrifice for his wife, for his family. Do you know that our marriage is the resemblance of our life with God? How can one be abusive and still call himself a Christian? How can one not know her potential, her input in this marriage, and still call herself a Christian? For a Christian who upholds the value of old school marriage, marriage according God's concept, it is to come as one, to be stronger, to conquer more. Because this union, physically union, it has to resemble the spiritual connection with God. If you cannot be a good husband, or if you cannot be a good wife, are you a good child of God? No. Our relationship with one another, the cross that we always talking about, It's the same kind of wood that makes the horizontal and the vertical. So my life with God depends very much on my life with my husband. My husband's life with God depends very much on his life with me. So when there is abuse, betrayal, rebellions, when there is quarrels in the marriage, your life with God is at the same note. For us Christians, instead of thinking about a career, a future, money, empowerment, after accepting Jesus, the most important thing that we need to prioritize, it is marriage. It is when two lives will become one and will resemble God's glory in this world. This is how God has conceived marriage. And many do not believe anymore in it because of everything that is going wrong out there. But God didn't make it to go so astray in the way you see. I have a question for you. Do you believe in God? I guess you're saying yes. So automatically, you need to believe in God's purpose, design, and concept for marriage. If you are not living up to what we spoke about, giving up is not the answer. You can work in your marriage. And that's why today we are going to pray for you to make right choices, a partner for life. Marriage is a contract for life. Or if you are already married and you are not living according to the purpose of God for your marriage, you are going to find ways to work in your marriage, and your life will resemble God's glory in this world. We are here today talking to you because, believe us, apart of Precious, none of us come from a marriage, from a family which mother and father were married or well married. As I said before, I was an independent production. Silmara lost her father very young. Her mother married again and went into abuse. Tammy did not know her father well because for odd circumstances, I would say, he had to leave the family. You grew up with divorced parents. But one thing we can all say, our marriage reflects our life with God. So if it was possible for us, it is possible for you. Close your eyes. We're going to pray for you now.
My Lord, in the name of Jesus, we believe that all that we have spoken here, enlightened by your word, my God, open the minds and the vision of those who are watching us. We know for sure that all that you created, the world wants to destroy. And that's why marriage is so much attacked in our days. Because you created that, you created us to be happy, to have a family, and to complete your plans, my God. But the world is trying to destroy that. But those who believe in you, today they decide to do different. They decided to see marriage with different eyes. They decide to follow your word to overcome problems they are having in their marriage. The singles that are watching us, they decided to choose for intelligent love, because love has nothing to do with hearts, with emotion, but it has all to do with sacrifice that comes from you, my God. Because we are happy, we sacrifice each and every day, and our marriage is blessing, it's happy. So my God, what we have, we want to give to all those who are watching us. They can have the same experience of enjoying life together with a person that was sent by you to fulfill, my God, our life in this world, my Father. So we bless all of them in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. You are blessed and believe in marriage. When you say, I believe in marriage according to God's principle, in other words, you're saying, I believe in God. and that miracle will happen in my life. If you need help, we have available our love therapy every Thursday and 2 books that will guide you in your journey. Bulletproof Dating, Bulletproof Marriage. It comes out of experience of having troubles in marriage, having troubles in dating, and what should you do so that your marriage be really according to the purpose of God for your life. Next week, we're going to be back celebrating Women's Month, and we are going to explore something we talk about. Women are strong. Women are powerful. Women are the columns of family. But why sometimes we still see ourselves as the weak link? We meet again next week, Friday, 3 p.m. Until then, God bless your month. Bye-bye.
This is a rock. This is an egg. A rock. A glass. If you've ever seen what a rock can do, you would never stand in its way. Watinta bafazi, watinta mbogoto. You strike a woman, you strike a rock. That alone shows how strong and valuable we women are. So why do we tend to believe that we are this weak link? This Friday at 3 p.m., the answer awaits.